What's up, guys? Welcome back to Wrenching Wrecked. Back on the sporty for a little bit today. I don't know how far I'm going to be able to get, but I think in the last video we got the rear wheel all hooked up, new bearings in, new seals, or old bearings, new seals, and then I needed snap ring pliers to get the little washer in there underneath. You're not going to be able to see any of it, but I put the rest of the wheel back together off camera, bright and early, like 5:30 this morning, and then came over here, got the wheel mounted back in, and then I just put, we put the sprocket back on, the flat one instead of the dish. I am extremely happy with this. I don't know how well this is going to show up, but this is a flat sprocket, run straight down. We have pretty much a perfect straight line going down there now. I can grab a bar and show you, but take my word for it. I am very happy with this. If we look down, I lost the mic. It's covered in metal shavings. Cool. If we look down from this, from the top, stupid microphone magnets. If we look down from this, we got about a finger gap in between the chain and the tire, so we're still gonna have to modify the fender a bit, but we got plenty of gap there. It's a little tight, but it will be okay. Pretty confident with that one. But wheel spacing, I'm happy with. Center line on the chain, which is more important in my opinion, is good. I also started messing around with some of the brake stuff, just I forgot what he had prior. So we have pretty much a straight rod. It's not going to be the cleanest linkage, but we are putting a disc brake on a XLCH kick only iron head, which would have had a drum brake on the other side. Now we have a disc, so the rear's set, but we got to figure out what we're going to do with the master. And I cut that bracket off, so we might be doing some major grinding and overhaul on this to get this back to where I need it, and then figure out where that's going to go. I don't like the idea of putting this down low if I can avoid it, so we might have to fab something up on here. The way it was set up looked like it was pretty long. Let's see if I can throw you guys here. Honestly, you might know better than me because I don't remember where I was when I cut all of this off. But it is a very long push rod here. And the master will bolt up somewhere like this. So we'll lay this out and get that going roughly where it needs to be. This might end up getting re-welded back on there or altered and changed. As long as it's up on this part of the frame rail where it curves back up, I should have enough clearance, but it does make me nervous. Like, I don't want to go any lower than that. It's not going to be the prettiest thing in the world by any means, just based on design. And I don't like having the master that low. So we might have to get a little creative on what we do with that and where that's going to land. I need something, maybe weld a different tab on here, bring this in a little bit. I don't know. The master, I forgot about it. I'm not going to lie. I overlooked that little bit. On the wheel side, we got the chain back on, so that's good. The wheel's bolted in. Axle spacing still looks good. I'm happy with those. I'm waiting on the lower bung for the fender, and we're kind of at that play dress up point of I'm dead in the water until I can get this lower mount figured out. I can get the fender to tuck way farther forward now, but now I'm short like a 1/2 inch spacer on the bottom. And then it's just a matter of how tight do I want to make the radius here, or do I want to cut the sissy bar down, cut this bracket out, then I'll just have a bare sissy bar that I'll have to recut, re-weld, and then recoat to make all of this work. Let me see if I can drop a battery tray or something to support this fender down at the bottom a little bit more, just for now, to get a better idea of rough stance. Something kind of like that. It's a little bit bigger of a gap than I would like on the top, obviously. It's not centered left and right. Aesthetically, I mean, that's not too terrible. Pretty standard issue for your chopper, if you will. And then this will end up coming forward a bit. So I'm kind of torn right now as to whether or not I want to wait until I get the bungs in to make this lower bracket and start down here. And then I can pull this up. Essentially, we're about at the point where I could also lock this in and then worry about the lower mount after. But the one right here is going to be where I need to kind of focus my attention. And it's really, really dependent on what I want to do back here. If I leave this, I have about a 1/2 inch gap in between the fender and the top mount of this bracket on the rear, where this should come up. Obviously the fender is going to rest on this unless we notch it, then I can drop this down. Or I can play cut weld, cut grind weld, cut this bracket out of the Sissy bar and then remake a bridge piece to get this to where I think it's supposed to be. There's a lot of options. I don't know if we're going to tackle that one today, unfortunately, as much as I want to. It's a Monday after all, first day back to work, post-weekend, and my level of motivation is not that high today. But I want to keep doing stuff on here and making a little forward progress. Just having the chain on here makes me feel better moving forward. Chain and axle are good. Brake is done. Not the master, but the actual caliper axle brake configuration for the drivetrain. Very happy with that. So let me figure out what I'm gonna do, see what I want to do, I guess, or how much I want to get done today. And then, yeah, let me think on this for a minute. I think I'm saying screw it. I think I'm gonna cut this Sissy bar mount off. I'm really not happy with it the more I keep looking at this. It's not straight. You can kind of see the offset on the bend on the right side to the hard bend on the left. And it's too tall for what I need. So I think I'm just gonna say screw it, cut that off. And then we can radius the fender. I got the chain laid out here on the tire. This is usually what I typically end up doing, either this or some fuel line, heater hose, something along those lines. But I think I'm gonna cut this mount off, and I might not keep the same fender support. I might do 2 bullets or something through here, because this fender's not the skinniest in the world. I don't know. I save a lot of time if I do keep this fender as is, but I don't love it at all. Don't love it. I don't like how big the gap is on the backside. I don't think it's gonna look bad if we put this back together that way, but I think it's gonna look a little bit nicer if I get rid of it on the mount and pull that in a little bit more. I think it's gonna aesthetically look a little bit better. Like if we're looking at the outside edge of this, that fender doesn't look terrible, but it is definitely taller. But I also think this needs to be bent up a little bit farther as well. Decisions. Lots of options. Just a matter of how far do I want to go? Let me sip on a beer for a second and actually decide if I want to cut that out or make it work. Screw it, we're gonna cut this off. I was all excited to try and run it, but the more I keep looking at this, 1, the center hole is like an inch offset from where it should be. 2, the radius is wrong. And 3, I'd rather have the fender hug the tire proper, or at least closer to where I would want it. So, got a brand new grinder that's been sitting on the bench that I forgot I had, actually, until just now. So now I got cutting, and then I got a sanding one. So, here goes nothing. just pop a fuse? Come on now. Did my Harbor Freight grinder just literally die that quickly? I got power to the outlet. Brand new grinder. This is what I get. Should have paid for the extended warranty. 20 seconds on a brand new grinder? Come on. The bearings don't feel very good on here. Just hit it a couple times. Let's see if I can get lucky and do the same thing coming at it this way. So obviously I'm gonna have to grind that down a little bit more. Works now. I don't know what that was about. Bracket's off. I'm not gonna worry about trying to clean any of this up yet. We'll come back to that, and then all of this powder is gonna get removed and redone. I have a powder coating shop, so that doesn't really cost me anything. A little bit of time more than anything else, but there we have it. Now, we got the chain on. It's not fully mounted, bolted in yet, but close enough. And then we got the overhead chain here. I could tape this, but I don't know if I have tape up here. It's a good idea to do that, just so if it does roll or move around at all, it'll kind of stay in place a little bit better. But now, we can kind of lay this one out a little bit better. I actually don't know if I'm gonna need bungs. Looking at this now, you got a lot more options. So the Fender's on a fixed radius, but I can either line the end of this fender up down low and then pull this up, or we can tuck it down lower and make this work too. Actually, now that that Sissy bar mount's out, I have more than enough gap here on this where I can do a flush mount on the lower fender tab. If none of this is making sense as I'm thinking out loud, let me try and explain it. So the fender's on a fixed radius from the curvature of that design. And we have this bracket down here on the lower mount, which doesn't need to be as tight as the rest of it. So you can see it's kind of on an angle in between the gap of that mount and the fender. I can bend that down a little bit to square that one up to the fender. Then we just do a through bolt down low. Then, if we center that up, do a through bolt down there, we can come back up to the top. Once this is tight and centered, then we can cock this up if we want to go higher, or try and radius this a little bit more. It's not going to be a perfect gap, but from the back, this is sitting much better in terms of the gap back here. I'll have to figure out what we're going to do from the Sissy bar to the fender, because typically you want this, I would want this a little bit farther in, but we're not building a brand new Sissy bar for this as much as I would like to. And mounting wise, spin this fender tab out a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to be drilling and mocking this up completely today, but I'm much happier with the radius and the way that this is looking like it's going to fit. See if I can get lucky enough to get this tab to bend with the tire still on. Try and bend this down a little bit more. Almost. And then we'll throw a couple tacks on the edge of this. Less is more approach here. Hand formed, right? Okay. Yeah. And I might have gone too far. Go figure. Go figure. One more little bend over here. Come on. If I can get by with just centering up a 5/16 hole in the bottom of the fender to alleviate the gap, I feel pretty good about it. Okay. Feeling much better. Okay, so I'm gonna drill a hole, hopefully in the center of this fender, and try and at least get a reference point. And then we'll hold off. I might not actually need bungs now that I cut that sissy bar out. Before, I would have needed to put a threaded bung and welded to the fender, but I think this one should actually pull right into that fender, or at least get close enough where like a leather washer in between the frame and the fender is gonna work just fine. So let me get a hole drilled in this. We'll grab a center punch, mark this out, drill a hole 5/16. We can go oversize a little bit on that. That'll at least allow me to bolt this on and then kind of get a better idea where it needs to go, left, right, up, down. Okay, this is a 6-inch fender, so I'm laying a tape measure out here, and we're just gonna, unfortunately, I'm not going for dead nuts perfect because there will be a little bit of wiggle room here, but I'll go to the 3-inch mark, keeping the tape stretched across this. And we'll go roughly 1.5 inches up. Double check. There's 6 inches. Yeah, so just, what is that, 1 3/8 up. Now I got a nice little center punched hole here that we'll go ahead and drill through if I can find the drills. Oh boy. And where did I leave the actual drill bits? High quality, crappy Harbor Freight bits, but pull this back. How can I put you? You're not in my way. Stand back. Nothing is ever straight, so kind of take it with the eyeball approach. Hopefully we can get it pretty close. But where that sits right there, good enough for me. And this is going to be a 5/16 bolt, so we want to go up a little bit here. And we'll put some sort of washer in between, but might actually scale this up one more size, just so there's a little more cheating room. So instead of a 5/16, we are at a 3/8. Ooh, what did I drop? There we go. Now I can bolt this in. As long as I have some hardware, which I should. There's a 5/16 bolt on the ground here. And what do I want to do? We'll lay the chain out first, just to keep a rough reference. I know it's not going to tighten down to be totally flush on this chain, but that's okay. This will at least give me a rough idea on the rear where we need to land everything. And then we can kind of mark out where it's going to land on the chain too. See, this is what happens. I said I didn't want to do all that much today, and look at me now. Doesn't take much. Let's see what I got here for hardware. 5/16. This will come through the backside. That's way too long. Just need a 1-inch bolt. Why is this so difficult? I got a million of them. That's fine thread. Obviously, we will be adding hardware and getting this finalized at some point, but for right now, we're just getting one bolt in there to hold it kind of in place or dress up. So we'll snug this down. And then we can kind of play with where the rest of this is going to land and what needs to get cut off. So at least have a fender on there now. And then honestly, I think this is going to land roughly flush when we get this all back together. So if we look down the back of this now, we're pretty trued up on there, which is fine. Fender will come up. If I want it real tight flush on the frame, just pull it up and that'll land right there. We got a nice gap here, still a little taller than I typically like, but given what we're working with, I think that should be just fine. But it's mounted down low. I'm happy with the length on the Sissy bar. This is mobile, so we can land that wherever we want. Got about a finger gap on each side of the fender to the Sissy bar, so that should be good. That'll pretty much do it. Huh. Gap gets a little bigger down here, but it's the radius on the fender widens up a bit down there, and once you get the oil bag and everything, you'll never see that. So, hell yeah, I think we're about good. Obviously the Sissy bar's a little farther back than it needs to be right now, but I am good with that. So now it's just a matter of kind of eyeballing where this is gonna land left and right. Jam my hammer in here. When in doubt, shove stuff in there. We'll take up the slack. And just for giggles, let's hook the chain back up. Man, that is close on that fender. So we are going to have to notch this a little bit for the fender gap. But much happier with the way this is laying out. About a thumb's width over here. Extremely precise on this. Just over on this side, so the fender's hugging the left just a hair, which I don't necessarily mind with the chain clearance on the other side. We're also still floating here, so. If I want, we can square that up a little bit better. One thumb, just over a thumb. So I do have enough wiggle room to get that pretty level here on the back side in between the frame. Where's my tape measure? Seven eighths. One inch. Just under an inch. An inch. So I'm within a 1/16 of an inch, left and right, just sitting where it's at right now. Which I'm good with. I'm happy with that. So obviously the chain's rubbing on the fender here, so we're gonna have to do a little bit of notching here. Pretty standard, kind of par for the course in regards to the fenders, because the chain clearance is pretty tight, but I think that'll do. That chain's irrelevant now because there's no way this fender is going to drop that low. If you're doing a shorter fender, you could actually tuck that gap in much more, but we're not doing the full lengther. So I think I'm pretty much ready to kind of square this up and possibly weld a bracket on there. So 1 inch from the fender to the frame. One inch from the fender to the frame. Let me come back around to the back side. Should work. Let me see if I got enough material to figure out some sort of bracket for this. If not, that's going to be a tomorrow or the day after project. So after some deliberation on this, I've hit the stopping point for tonight. I said I ordered the bungs for the lower mount, which I won't end up having to use, but when I ordered them, I ordered a builder kit. So I think there's like 12 or 15 of them coming, a couple of different size ones. But here's kind of what I'm thinking. When I had the hammer jammed in here like so, I didn't think that looked bad. Sits up a little bit higher here, but it brings that fender pretty flush with this frame rail. However, I do think it actually, I don't know, let me set you guys down on the tripod one more time, but I think it looks better if I go back to the original mount. So this, I'm okay with that. But I also think tighter is a little bit better, which puts me at about there. I have plenty of clearance on the backside, just with the chain on here. Plenty of clearance in between. Just gets a little tight, but the gap here widens. So what we're gonna end up doing, man, terrible at filming and talking and trying to do things all at once. So if the fender drops back down to where it should, we got a nice tight radius through here, all the way through here, and then the extended fender and the little kick up kind of hides a ton in terms of the clearance on the back. But now we got a little bit of a gap here. So I think what I'm gonna do is wait for the new bungs to get here, and then we will be welding some tabs off of this frame rail coming up into threaded bungs on the fender. So 2 threaded bungs here and here. That way, when you pull the seat off, I have 2 bolts that'll bolt into the top side of the fender, as opposed to trying to have to mess with getting all of this off. Just makes it a little bit quicker and easier to get to everything. So 2 fixed bungs are probably gonna end up being, I don't know, 1/2 inch in length. And then we'll weld tabs from the frame with a hole, and then the bolts will go through the frame tab into the fender, onto the fender bungs. And I think that should work on the front. And then for the rear, we might end up doing some, I don't know if I'm gonna do one or two. I gotta grind all these welds down and clean up the sissy bar anyway, but there might be one coming through here, one on each side, maybe the front of the sissy bar. I think that might be a little bit cleaner. Or maybe two, who knows? Haven't fully decided until I get all the parts in, but I think two bungs right here and here through the fender, that should work. We might do the countersunk Allen bolts that kind of go through, and that'll thread into two bungs on the back side of the sissy bar as well. We'll see. I think I'm just gonna wait until the parts get here, and then I can play dress up a little bit more. I don't wanna go too crazy right now without having the actual bits here. Thought about doing like an angle iron piece, two, basically, one on the fender, one on the frame here, to catch that and then put a bolt through there, but it's also gonna be much easier to address that down the line. And I'm really leaning towards cutting this mount off and drilling through the center post of the frame for that seat that I got with this bike. So that's kind of it for now, I guess. I'm waiting on parts again. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all those other fun things, if you don't mind. We'll keep jamming on this as parts keep coming in, and still gotta go get that electric start stuff so I can figure out how much room I have in between for the oil tank and the battery tray and all of that. And then got the electric start stuff. Oh, and then I found a buddy of mine as an inner primary for me. A buddy of mine / customers from a while back that I haven't seen in a while, but I was scrolling through Marketplace, saw one about an hour away and realized it was him. So got to run down and grab that at some point for the shovelhead, but different video, different project. For now, ironhead fender, we at least got it closer to mounted and done. I think it's looking pretty good so far. Let me know if you got thoughts and things on the fender. I'm not opposed, but I'm much happier about cutting that bracket off. That was gonna bother me, and now we're committed. So we'll catch you on the next one.